Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Braden Fortner, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about case control studies. So before we begin, let's just take a quick look at where we find a case control study on the evidence pyramid that we have been looking at throughout this course. As you can see here, a case control study can be found right in the middle of the hierarchy of the pyramid. It is placed at a level 3B in a grade B study. So no, it is not quite as strong as a systematic review or a randomized clinical trial, but these studies we can definitely put our faith in if we deem that they are done correctly after we do our analysis. So to get started, let's talk about what exactly a case control study is. So as the title says, we have two groups that we are studying, really comparing. Two groups that we're comparing. We have a case group and a control group. A case group is a group of individuals who have some known outcome, such as any common experience, or such as the same medical diagnosis, just something that each of them in the group has and that relates them to each other. Another way to describe this is people being a part of the same cohort, which, as we know, could be related to age, gender, or even the time of hospitalization after contracting a certain disease. Just something that relates them to each other. And then we have the control group, which is the group of individuals that are free of the known outcome that we are looking at. So they will not have that common experience or that medical diagnosis that the case group did. And to kind of put it in a definition here at the bottom, case control studies look back in time to learn which participants in each group had certain exposures and to decide which factors cause the different frequencies in the respective groups. So why would we ever perform a case control study, or when would the appropriate time be to do so? So case control studies are great for studying rare diseases, diseases in a dynamic population, diseases with a long induction and a long latent period. It's just another way of saying there was a substantial amount of time between an individual being exposed to a certain disease or illness or a virus, anything like that, and then from there to the time that they start showing symptoms. And then we also have that case control studies are quick and inexpensive, which can come in handy when exposure data is difficult or expensive to obtain. And then they also allow us to examine multiple variables of a single disease, or in other words, all the different ways a disease can affect an individual. Alright, so selecting controls for the study. This is a key aspect to a case control study. There are a few rules that need to be followed to put together a solid control group for the study. First, they must be very similar to the cases. And in parenthesis right here, we have comparability over representativeness. So in studies such as randomized clinical trials, we are looking for the sample participants to be a representation of the population as a whole, and also for this selection to be at random to eliminate bias. On the other hand, for case control studies, we are very particularly selecting our participants to fit the context of the study. So back to comparability versus representativeness. Participants in a case control study need to fit in the study well, and the control group needs to closely resemble the case group. And these two factors are more important to the case control study than the population as a whole being represented. So next, we have that the control group needs to be free of the disease, but still at risk for the disease. So the way I like to think about this is that both groups had the same chance to contract this disease, this illness. The only difference is that one group did and one group didn't. And then lastly on this slide, we have that the only difference between the two groups is that one has a particular disease and the other doesn't. And there is an asterisk there on purpose, and I will get to that on the next slide. Alright, so now we're going to talk about a few challenges of case control studies. So first we have just finding the control group and participants to be in this group. sometimes it can be hard finding people for the control group that are similar enough to the people in the case group, or finding enough of them to fill the study. Next, we have overmatching, and this is where the asterisk comes into play. Sometimes we can be so focused on trying to find participants that are exactly alike, identical to the case group, that our scope is too small and we cannot find enough for the study. And there's definitely a fine line here between making sure the case group and the control group are similar, but not making it to where they have to be so identical that we can't come up with enough participants for the study. And making these decisions just comes with experience in these types of studies. And lastly, we have bias. In case control studies, we have selection bias, which is bias in selecting participants for the study. And then we also have recall bias, which is where the people in the case group are more likely to remember exposure than the controls, which can throw off the frequency of the results. So people in the case group will more easily recall or remember, the exposure that they had, more so than the control group will. Alright, and then here are my references for the presentation. I appreciate anyone who took the time to listen, and hopefully, me explaining the subject in a way that makes sense to myself also helped it make more sense to you if anybody was struggling with this topic. So thank you.